my first duel video, and it's going to be on involving myself playing this WoW Veggie deck that I just deck profiled on the channel. Just the same exact list. Before I start, if anyone else wants to play Kaijudo as well, if anyone else is interested, again I'll link the video that Stents the Boss made for Rangers Dojo that kind of instructed how to set this all up. And on top of that, I was finding some matches and people to play with through the Rangers Dojo Discord channel. So look into those if you're interested. And otherwise, I hope you guys enjoy the dual video. Again, between myself and LED, who is actually the person who kind of inspired me to kind of rehash this veggie list, and we'll see how the game goes. I'm going to be doing kind of a replay of the video. I tried recording a few live duels, but they just kind of came out a little bit clunky. I wasn't super happy with the commentary, so I did, and it was a little bit more taxing and made the games play out a little bit slower. So I decided I'm gonna try the replays first and see how those go. So let me know if anyone watching enjoys this style of deck profile. Or style of duel video, as opposed to even just recording IRL kind of duels. It's a little more easy to kind of go through what's all happening. So anyways, starting into the match, of course I'm playing the Veggie deck here, and LED. We didn't know at the time what each other were playing, but LED, it looks to be that he's playing his, I think it ends up being Fire Dark Light Shadow Champion deck, which I believe is actually a deck that I think he top 8'd a KMC with back in the day. Certainly not the exact list. I think it was a little bit of more of an older version, and there's a lot of newer cards in this variant, but it is a deck that he did top 8 a KMC with. And for myself, of course, I think LED won the die roll, so he's going to be putting myself going first, actually, which is something he does quite a bit, and I think it's certainly a video I could make, a discussion topic I could make a video on, is choosing to go first or second. I think from his perspective, it looks to be that he's playing kind of a more grind you down. He wants to be playing things like Grudge Weaver to the board, which are kind of these deterrent style cards. And when you're playing games like that, you really want the extra card, because when you're doing kind of putting out cards that aren't really proactively killing your opponent, you need kind of a lot of them, and you want to be hitting your land drops up to some of these bigger effects. So it makes sense to be wanting to go second, and it also makes it much easier. You can grind your opponent down on resources. That said, I think it can still be matchup dependent, and for the most part, I like choosing to go first if you don't really know what your opponent's playing. And it's really tough to play out, and it really is kind of your hand dependent as well. It's like a whole separate topic, but for what we know, it looks like LED is going second, and he elected to do so, and so we'll see how it plays out. From my perspective, obviously the turn 1 Blitz Commando was just kind of the blatant mana choice there, nothing really to go into. Just get that out of the way. From LED's perspective, it looks like he's just going to be putting down probably this giant fortress. Get that. It's just not going to be a card that's going to be too relevant in this matchup, especially considering he already knows I'm playing some kind of Blitz Commando deck. Whether that be just Corrupted or Veggies, it's going to be something more aggressive. So we'll probably see him put that fortress down if I remember correctly. And yeah, we'll see how this game develops. Of note, yeah, I don't think we don't see any of the fire cards yet, but I do believe he is playing some small section of fire. And when he plays down the fortress, I've already played LED a few times, and I've seen him play a few different Ripper Reaper style decks, but I'm pretty sure he is on the Fire Dark Light kind of Shadow Champion deck from his first mana choice that I see here. And here the decision is between which of these two drops to play. I think it's pretty clear. Just play one of the Renegades, and then go from there. For LED, seeing the Renegade, we'll see how he wants to approach this. So we kind of see already he's playing a much more aggressive slant to this deck. It's got some of these high costed mid-rangey tools, but he's also got the Tactician and Beacon Drone, which can make for some really relevant counter pushes. And from his perspective, obviously he kind of wants to hold on to this combo. The Ravenous Webblade can be something kind of decent to stabilize with. The Screeching can already answer some cards that I'm playing, so those all make sense to keep. The Luminous Shield Wing doesn't really do an effective job of challenging these Renegades, and at least this Grudge Weaver might act as a deterrent, so we opt to play that, which all makes sense so far. For my turn, I just opt to go mana and play the Tricky Turnip. If I top deck an untapped card, I think it's pretty clear, just dump out my hand, play these 2-drops, go super wide, and then just attack into the Grudge Weaver. That makes sense. So I don't want to chip in there. I don't want to lose one of these cards. I'll see what I draw. So that makes sense so far from my perspective. And from his, draws a Ripper Reaper, so kind of clarifying what we already know sort of about his deck. From his perspective, I would think maybe just throwing down this Webleg would be probably my choice, but yeah, okay, we see that the same. These are all the Ripper Reaper is not going to be a super strong card against the board that I've developed so far, but it's still a tool that he might be able to use. And he opts to play the Beacon Drone here, just developing his board. So when I see that, I probably know, I cue into the fact that he's probably playing a more aggressively slanted version. I'm not sure if this is exactly the same variant of Fire Dark Light Shadow Champions as he traditionally had played. I think looking back, I think some of the earlier versions he played against me had much more of like had some different cards in it. So I think this might be a separate variant of the deck that he's playing that's more built to facilitate another Tactician here. But it still has some of the Shadow Champion sub-theme that we might see later. For my turn, unfortunately I drew this Steam Tank, so I wasn't able to make the double play. But going a little more in depth, I think what I decided to do was hold on to it. Just given that I think the card is actually, given that I can cast it, it's going to be a pretty strong card, especially considering that his deck, from what I know of it and kind of what I can surmise from what he's playing, I mean, he's really not going to have great answers to it. Like his Ripper Reaper is one of his few kind of enters the battlefield, kill something cards, and obviously when I have these Bronze Arm Renegades, it's not going to be able to touch this Cryon. So the Cryon is actually a pretty strong card that I can play towards here. That gives me a lot more, even more powerful top decks. So yeah, I decided to kind of play towards that. There was a debate about maybe holding on to putting the Renegaded mana and holding on to this Pesky Pineapple as opposed to attacking at all. As opposed to just playing this out. And that means I can kind of guarantee to draw the Steam Tank, or cast a Steam Tank if I draw another multi-civ. But that said, like if I draw a bad apple, I'm going to play that over the Steam Tank likely anyways. So there is maybe a debate, but I think just developing my board is probably better to do. Although, I mean, another thing is just keeping this pineapple means I can kind of throw the pineapple in mana next turn, or throw this Renegaded mana this turn. Next turn, throw the pineapple and play Steam Tank, and that way if I draw something nice like a Finbar or a Cornucopia or some number of those, especially Finbar for sure, if I draw one of those big power cards, I can hold it in my hand, cast the Steam Tank, and then next turn, like it just, rather than have this creature in play, it might be more important to have the flexibility of an extra card to put in mana so that I can guarantee or play towards an even stronger follow-up to Steam Tank. So that would kind of be the benefit to not actually committing this card to the board. That said, I kind of want to be playing a little more of a low to the ground game plan. I'd prefer to sort of cast a Steam Tank, empty my hand, and start pushing in on his shields. Given that I know he's going to be playing this kind of Nether Tactician combo that can really quickly turn the corner, I just want to be pushing against his shields and trying to set up a situation where he's forced to answer these, build up my mana, and then I can play towards a swift regeneration. So I think I want to be getting a bit more aggressive than trying to play towards some individually powerful cards. It's kind of a toss-up. You could maybe make the case a little strongly in the favor of holding on to this resource. Again, don't attack because the Steam Tank's part of a card I really want to cast, or I want to cast. And from his perspective, plays a Tactician, as opposed to playing like something like the Screeching, which makes sense. He probably doesn't want me to put me into like a Finbar turn, for example. And here, just draw the untap, play the Steam Tank. And there's another decision here about whether or not I should attack. Obviously, it feels like a good spot. I don't mind him kind of revenge killing these renegades with the Tactician, especially if it means like I'm putting me up on mana to mean I can have even stronger follow-ups with the Steam Tank in play. So I'm totally fine with that, and I think this is a good position to start getting aggressive. The downside is if I hit like a Shield Blast, it can really punish that push. So you can make a case against it, but I'm really not sure at this point like what Shield Blast he's really playing. He could be playing stuff like maybe the Arbiter, maybe he's playing Terrapit, Joko. I don't see his list really playing Bone Blades. It's not a card I've really seen him play in his variants of Fire Dark Light prior. And so yeah, I'm really not too sure. So I'm kind of debating whether or not I should go in, what kind of Shield Blast might punish me. Really thinking if like I want to risk it, and I think I decide that it's probably worth pushing in, and I hit the Terra Pit off the first shield, which blows out my Steam Tank. So that was really kind of a knock against my play, a punish for my play, but I'm not really sure. That's another one of those like really close scenarios. It's really hard to navigate. I think from my position in this matchup, given that he already has this incredibly powerful combination assembled, I think it's probably worth the play. Because yeah, I mean, it might be not worth it. Just giving him the extra cards makes it like he can probably, I think he can just game me if he draws like another beacon drone. So maybe it's worth not giving him the cards at all. But at the flip side of that coin is maybe from my perspective, I just kind of have to race this Nether Tactician. So because I believe if he draws, just do the quick calculations here. If he draws another beacon drone, I'm not super familiar with this deck, so bear in mind if this kind of comes up where it's kind of tricky for me. So he would break one, attack with the Tactician, break two, banish the beacon drone, untap, attack, break two more, and then banish the other beacon drone, and then he can very easily kind of beat me out of nowhere if he plays a second beacon drone. Sumo Artichoke might mess that up a little bit, but I don't even know if I don't think the Sumo Artichoke even stops that. So from that's kind of like a double-sided coin. Like I need to either pressure him to get under this Tactician, or I need to dodge or try to prevent him from drawing this Tactician. But I'm kind of on like that I'm on like a clock against this Tactician, and there's always kind of two sides where am I trying to maybe speed up the clock? Like it's a balance. Like you speed up the clock somewhat, but you hope that the amount you kind of speed up that clock isn't by enough to kind of hit the time you're worried about. I don't know if that makes sense. Like there's a calculation you have to do there. Yeah, like you just hope you can get there just fast enough to get by the time, even if you're making it a little more likely that they find what you're worried about. It's you make the calculation that it's still going to be quicker, or it's still going to be more successful than just sitting back and giving them all the time in the world to find that card. You may give them more cards to see in the short term, but you're limiting the overall amount of cards they get to see by trying to, if you just sat back and gave them all the turns to develop their hand. So here he just makes the play of cast Screeching, and then he's gonna clear my board, so I'm gonna be out of a board, which is, I don't know, like the double Terra Pit was kind of hurtful, and he just has the ability. I'm kind of surprised, to be honest, that he put this Grudge Weaver in mana. I feel like he would want that extra layer of protection. This Jurlon I don't see really accomplishing much, and I would prefer I think from my perspective, I would prefer he would just put this in mana and put the Grudge Weaver, keep the Grudge Weaver as an option in his hand for the following turn. Um, yeah, I think that would be the play. Given that he's already kind of got lethal set up, he might just want the extra blocker in case I have like an artichoke or something. But regardless, he's going to clear my board and be looking pretty strong here. Okay, I think there was just a little bit of delay as he was just confirming that he didn't want to do any of these effects. And here I draw Steam Tank, which is a cool card because it kind of gives me the outs to a few more things if he can't kill me. It just allows me, like a swift regeneration off the top becomes much more powerful, or I mean it's about the same with these cards in mana already. Or sorry, if he gives me cards, he has to attack. If he's not able to kill me, then at least it gives me like a very powerful draw in like Cornucopia. And then if he's able to bring me up to a swift regeneration, it's already going to be strong. But it just gives me a few more combinations of powerful cards to draw. And then from his perspective, oh, he draws a Beacon Drone. Okay, so he's got a lot of combinations to just win the game here. But this is a tricky spot to navigate, actually. So this is just, I mean, he can basically just go to town. Like he chips for a shield, and he can just break 2, untap, break another 2, untap again, and then like from his perspective, like it's just guaranteeing game effectively. But I think he made a miscalculation here, in my opinion. I think the correct play from his perspective is just to play the Ruthless Ripper and deal with this Cryon. He can just play it, banish the Grudge Weaver, for example, and then he can make the same play. He can go attack with Beacon Drone, attack with the Nether Tactician, break 2, untap the Nether Tactician. He can attack with the Screeching, and then he can attack with the Tactician, banish one of the other creatures. Maybe he can even keep this Grudge Weaver in play, banish the Ripper Reaper off the first attack, so he can keep that blocker as defense. And then he can break my last shield and then kill me with another Tactician. So he already has lethal without needing the second Beacon Drone. And I think the one misstep he made is he didn't realize didn't calculate the Sumo Artichoke plus Steam Tank interaction, where Steam Tank gives the Artichoke plus 2k power, so it actually makes it 5,000 power, which actually, if he leaves Steam Tank in play and he hits a Sumo Artichoke, I'm guaranteed to I'm not gonna lose the game this turn. So this play, despite being able to break way more shields, this certainly would play around Sumo Artichoke, or even maybe even 2 Sumo Artichokes, if not for the Steam Tank. So that might have been his thought. He just failed or forgot to incorporate the plus 2,000 power of Steam Tank, and that might have been why he played the Beacon Drone, was just to play around having a Sumo Artichoke, even though it's not likely I do have one. But I think the better play would have been to Ripper Reaper and hit the Steam Tank. Given that in reality, Sumo Artichoke just brick walls him. If he plays Ripper Reaper, I think he still can't kill me through a Sumo Artichoke. But that way, at least he can deal with this Steam Tank, which makes it that much less likely that I can actually win the game on the following turn, because he can just stop attacking when he hits the Sumo Artichoke, or he can even attack over the Sumo Artichoke, or and I'm forced to use the Sumo Artichoke tapped because otherwise I'm gamed. So he can just answer the Sumo Artichoke, stop attacking, and then basically be guaranteed game next turn. It just gives me a lot less outs. Whereas this way, he has to stop attacking when he hits the Artichoke, but he can't actually answer the artichoke on board. So from that way, I'm guaranteed to untap with two attackers in the artichoke and the steam tank, and then if he gives me enough cards to dig into along the way to dig into something like a Swiffer generation or even a field marshal, he's just not going to be able to survive the crackback. So playing Ruthless Ripper Reaper, just either way, he's not going to be able to beat me if I have a Sumo Artichoke, except he's way less likely to die on the following turn if he plays the Ripper Reaper instead. So I think that was just a miscalculation he made. Of note as well, I think a rules interaction I didn't think of until this match. If it works how I think, then he could have actually beat me had he played the Ripper Reaper. I guess we'll let this play out. He could have actually won the game this turn if his Ripper Reaper, if he took the Ripper Reaper line, because I think Nether Tactician would have actually won the game if Sumo Artichoke was last shield, which I think would be something that could occur either way. I think either way he kind of beats Sumo Artichoke last shield, but yeah, that's an interaction I didn't really think of. But I believe I think he may have. I think he missequenced this turn. I think he could have still beat me even through the giant. Yeah, I think that was an attack wrong, because I think this is a rule interaction I didn't really think of until like reviewing this replay, where if he waited to attack with another tactician until it was a situation where he was facing my last shield, he could attack me, banish one of his creatures to break the last shield, and then the Nether Tactician would still go through and attack me, even though it broke a tap Sumo Artichoke. I'm not positive if that's the case. It may be the case that the Sumo Artichoke entering off the broken shield would redirect the attack from me to from me to the Artichoke. But I don't think that's the case. I think given that it's already attacked, it's already targeted me as the target for the attack. I don't think the Sumo Artichoke then can redirect it to itself. I don't believe that's how that works. So I think if he had taken the Ripper Reaper line, it would have made him a lot less likely to die. And I think it would have also, but either way, I think if he sequenced his attack correctly, I believe he could have beat Last Shield Artichoke. I think either way, he could beat Last Shield Artichoke if played correct. And the Ripper Reaper line also is much better if Sumo Artichoke is in any of the earlier shields. So I think that was this was like the defining moment of the game. Ultimately, I had to get extremely lucky to have a Sumo Artichoke in shields, given that I've already seen one, and I haven't been through that much of my deck. But yeah, I think the fact that he attacks in kind of is a little bit telling that maybe he forgot to take into account like the power of the steam tank. So I think that's probably why. I think he certainly knows the interaction of how you can break the last shield with another tactician's ability and then the attack goes through. He certainly knows that interaction. I think the problem was he just kind of forgot the bonus on Sumo Artichoke. So he was kind of just making this game push just kind of with beating me as sort of like Sumo Artichoke was just a card that wouldn't matter whether or not I had it, because he had, in his mind, he had kind of just made the play that beat Sumo Artichoke. But I think because he already thought he was convinced he had the game through a Sumo Artichoke, he didn't really consider the optimal way to attack in that situation. So, but yeah, I think for sure this game was a game his deck probably should have won. But I had to get incredibly lucky to have both things go my way. I had to untap, I had to draw into Swift Regeneration or like this Cornucopia here, and I needed to get kind of lucky. This wasn't even, I don't think I even made the optimal play. I'm not sure. I put the Cornucopia. I feel like there's a better way to try to game win the game. Maybe this is right. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's probably right to Swift Regen, just in case he has something like a Storm Spark Blast or whatever he's playing. I should Swift Regeneration, and then, yeah, that's fine. But yeah, a very close game. I had to get pretty lucky to win that. Sumo Artichoke had to kind of be a mid to late Shield Blast. It had to be late enough in my shields that I would get a Swift Regeneration or get to draw some cards to make it to actually facilitate the counter push. And I had to have the Sumo Artichoke to begin with to even survive. And so yeah, a very close game, and I think room for a little bit of improvement on both sides perhaps. Some of the plays I made there a little bit questionable as well. And yeah, jumping into the second game. So I'm up 1-0 in the best of 3. And the second game here, I think LED again choosing to go second. And I, of course, lead with the Sumo Artichoke. So, this is, I mean, I think from his opening hand, I think either the Fortress again would be a fine turn 1 play. The Jurlon as a multi-civ you might want to get out of the way now. But, I mean, from his hand, it looks like he's probably intending to cast this card. It's only 4-drop. He's probably going to cast like maybe the Grudge Weaver, maybe something else, and then he'll play the Jurlon. So if he's actively wanting to cast this card as part of his curve, it makes sense to hold on to it. If you weren't really intending to cast this, I'd probably want to get it out of the way as a multi-civ. I think I would probably lean towards doing that just because I don't think it's too effective of a card in the matchup, but we'll see. From my perspective, this is something I reflected on. I actually just kind of came to this kind of conclusion after I'd talked over my deck profile. I think I made a pretty big mistake here, or maybe not a big mistake, but a marginal mistake here. I think when you have the option, you should probably play Trickster over Durian if you're going to cast one at all. This is in the matchups where you don't really want the effect of Durian if the effect isn't going to be that relevant, which in a matchup like this where he's not playing too many interactive creatures that are kind of we're racing back and forth, like against like the aggro decks like Rush and stuff, you really want the effect of Durian, so you're going to cast it. But in a matchup like this, if I want to develop my board and play 2-drops, even like the suboptimal 2-drops like Trickster and Durian, if I want to do that, I should lean towards casting Trickster instead. Just because, I mean, they both trigger Bad Apple just the same. But the difference is, I'd rather have Durian in my mana zone than in my graveyard. And I'd rather have Aqua Trickster in my graveyard and Durian in my mana zone than Durian in my graveyard and Trickster in my mana zone. Just because Durian is pretty important to have access to. You only have 3 Durians where you have kind of 6 corrupted 2-drops. So when you're looking at adding more options to your Swift Regenerations in the late game, it can be really kind of crucial to have the Cryon plus Durian option, and you only have 3 Durians. So having one end up in your graveyard, it's much better to leave one in your mana zone. So that's kind of like a small hedge you can do that might add a little more power, and it might be super relevant for certain late game scenarios. And it could be pretty embarrassing if you end up in a situation where you would have loved to have Durian plus Cryon, but unfortunately the Durian's in your graveyard and you have an Aqua Trickster in your mana zone. So I think that's something you should consider when deciding. You don't necessarily need to default to the one with the ability. I think this was a situation where I probably should have defaulted to casting the Trickster. The reason to play the Trickster in mana instead would probably be if you want to play towards like the Blitz Commando plus 2 corrupted 2-drops. So for that reason you'd want to hedge toward having the Tricksters in your mana zone. But the difference is you have 6 corrupted 2-drops that can serve that role and go in alongside Blitz Commando. Not to mention you also have access to Bad Apple that just makes the any of your Wild Veggie 2-drops. It makes them corrupted creatures to work alongside the Blitz Commando just the same. So given that there's more replaceability amongst having Aqua Trickster in your mana zone, I think it might be better to hedge towards having the more unique properties of Dirk Durian in your mana zone when it comes to enabling your Swift Regenerations in the late game. So I think that was a marginal mistake I made. I don't know if it comes up in this game at all, but I think that is a mistake I made and something I should be considering going forward. Beyond that, I think it's questionable I even cast this card at all. I already know he's playing Grudge Weavers, and just this card's it's kind of hopeful to just plop this 2-drop and hope it accomplishes something when it's maybe doesn't. Um, the way the game plays out, I think I could see it going both ways. It's like he just promptly plays the Grudge Weaver, and now I'm kind of bricked off from attacking. It's really not profitable to do so. Um, so I think it was probably it may have been a mistake to just commit this Duke Durian to the battlefield. I think I touched on this in the prior game. It may have been much more important to conserve this as a resource in hand that can be converted into a mana drop as opposed to a creature in the battle zone. So from his perspective here, again, you could see an argument for playing the Jurlon, but at the same time, he may very well intend to cast it as just another castable card next turn. Puts the Terrapin down, makes sense. He's already got like a web leg to play towards. He's got Fortress. And he plays double Grudge Weaver, so he's got the battlefield. And from my perspective, I just drop a Trickster in mana, the double Artichoke, and just pass. And here he draws Impalicus, so this kind of tipping off the Shadow Champion package in his deck. So kind of cool card. I love the art on Impalicus, and it's a sweet card for sure. And he plays the Jurlon. Not a super strong card in the matchup, I don't think, but it's got a big body that contests these cards. From my perspective, this is a spot where I think, again, I might have gotten punished for playing the Duke Durian here. If this was a resource in my hand still, I could have just thrown this in mana in place of the Swift Regeneration. So now I would have been up Swift Regeneration in hand, and then I could have still cast this Ninja Pumpkin. But I got punished because I drew a multi-civ and didn't have this extra resource to use. That said, he does have the Jurlon to kind of pick these spells out of my hand, but it's very unlikely, I think, that he actually attacks anyways. So that was a spot where you could debate. It would have been better to hold this resource. I didn't have to commit it to turn 2, especially when it's very likely to accomplish nothing in the early game. I could have just held it in my hand, and then if it turned out that I was able to sequence it into some of my later progressions, that's fine, because it's not going to attack until the later stage of the game anyways. So I may just keep it in my hand as a kind of a flexible card where I can commit it to the board if the game dictates that, or I can commit it to my mana zone if the game dictates that instead. So that was kind of a situation where I may have gotten punished for committing it to the board too early. So here we kind of see a fire card, so we know he's playing the Fire Dark Light version. Prototype Gunship being another early creature and another kind of reason to say or to demonstrate how kind of ineffectual maybe the Duke Durian is in this matchup in terms of progressing the game. So I draw a second Swift Regeneration here. Again, kind of a debate whether or not I should actually do anything with it. And now this is a spot where it's kind of tough that I'm dropping both these in mana. I could have held on to one and just summon this, and then just sat back, and then maybe waited till the following turn to draw an extra card, and then maybe I can make an attack after that with like a Ninja Pumpkin. Again, he's probably not going to attack with a Jurlon anyways, and I could wait to maybe accumulate another resource. But the problem is, like, I have to start pushing at some point into these Grudge Weavers, and it kind of sucks that I had the Swift Regeneration there, but that's kind of the strength of Grudge Weaver, where, sure, it may not necessarily always trade for a resource out of your opponent's hand, but it did force me to downgrade this incredibly powerful card into just a mana. So, yeah, there was an argument made to maybe sit back, maybe wait till I draw maybe like a Finbar or something. I just don't. I think I have to start pushing at some point. We saw how quickly his deck can kind of turn the corner just by dropping a Tactician. So I feel like I want to start pushing in and emptying out my hand and attacking into these Grudge Weavers. And then I can go up to a bunch of mana. But it's tough because if I do save until I draw like a card next turn, I still can only push for one shield. It's tricky. It's kind of a tricky position. So we see I'm attack, and it feels very likely that he'll just take the card, which he does. And we'll see how this develops. So he could evolve, or no, he can't evolve. I keep thinking the Jurlon is a Shadow Champion, but it's not. So I choose to go in with the Pineapple as well. I could go with the Durian, but the reason I don't is because I don't want him to have the easy kill with the Jurlon. That said, it may be worth it just to take the trade on one of these cards, these blockers now. The argument against trading off any of my creatures, though, is a Finbar becomes that much more powerful for every creature I have in play. So I really don't want to be just kind of like throwing away my bodies. Especially also if I draw a Cornucopia, it also just buffs up these creatures anyway, so that these cards become, the Grudge Reavers become really irrelevant in that against my field. So here, the Impalicus, he has nothing to evolve on. I could see throwing that down, but it could also offer as like a fast attack with this combination here of the Impalicus plus Underworld Stalker. So he opts to mana the Beacon Drone, which I'm kind of surprised by. I feel like he should probably hold this card in place of the Shield Wing. Just because, again, he really wants to be able, if he draws, it just makes his Nether Tacticians he draws into so much more strong when he's able to just commit to these to the board after he has an already resolved Tactician. So I feel like that might be a minor mistake that he made there. I think the Shield Wing is a little less powerful. It's just not going to do much. Like, they're probably both, I mean, I feel like this is a card that's probably going to end up in mana in a couple of the following turns, or much more likely, whereas Beacon Drone is a card you actively want to keep in your hand. But this board is getting really kind of clogged up. I obviously just put down this Steam Tank. That was an easy mana decision. And now this is kind of a tricky board to navigate. I'm just going to be attacking with these ones that when they die they go to the mana zone. And he opts to trade here. Makes sense from his perspective. He gets his card back, or he gets to eliminate a creature on board at least. And now here's a spot I was thinking about attacking, but it just feels like there's nothing really profitable. If I attack with the Durian, then I lose both of these creatures, he just takes this trade, and that's not very good for me. If I attack with this, he just trades off with both of these, and I'm left with just a Durian. There's just nothing really. Again, I'm just really, there's so many more live draws if I just, with Finbar and Cornucopia, that I would rather just sit and wait for those than try to diminish this, or try to kind of, what's the word, trying to simplify the board state here. I'd rather just keep it, my creatures are going to be much more effective when I draw my kind of over-the-top cards. So I'm actively incentivized to maintain some level of board. And from his perspective here, it looks like he drew the Nether Tactician. So this is a situation where if he had held the Beacon Drone, it would have made it that much more strong. There are some cool situations where the Shield Wing with the Tactician can get him an extra shield, but I think it's much more important for him to have the ability to quickly turn the corner. Especially when he could follow up the following turn with something like the fast attack Impalicus off this Underworld Stalker. That might be a quick way to just steal a game. So I think he should have. I feel like this is a situation where he sort of got punished for keeping the Shield Wing over this Beacon Drone. And again, I draw the Sprite's Gift. Okay, so the Sprite's Gift. This was a situation in hindsight. Maybe I could have found a way. Like maybe it would have been worth making one of these trades to kind of eliminate his blockers, because either way, like I'm trading something here, like I'm trading the Ninja Pumpkin and this Bronze Arm thing for his Ravenous Webleg, but then I also get up to 9 mana, so if I draw Sprite's Gift, my Swift Regeneration is live. But the problem is, like, this Swift Regeneration just, I mean, it's not that good of a Swift Regeneration. It gets out like 2 creatures, and I get a chip in for like 1 extra shield, and then I untap with a Steam Tank, so it could be decent, but it's not that powerful. And like I said, there's way more draws outside of just, like, I could have just drawn an actual Swift Regeneration. I could have drawn an actual what's it called? I could have drawn the Finbar, the what's it called? The Cornucopia. Like, there were much more live draws outside of just that. Okay, so here I drew. So yeah, I decided to keep it in my hand. maybe not correct. I'm not sure. I make the attack. He trades his Grudge Weaver for the card in hand, I believe. And then I attack with the Durian, which is asking if he wants to. So he takes the shield. So kind of tricky spot. Not sure if I should have attacked or not with that. And here, again, if I attack with this Ninja Pumpkin, I lose my whole board. So again, I'm just kind of, I'd rather sit back and wait. Not sure if this felt kind of weird. I guess it makes sense. I need to break down in shields, and I'm just kind of play towards some kind of powerful top deck. From his perspective here, he draws another Beacon Drone. So this is a position where, given that he drew a Beacon Drone, I mean, yeah, he's looking really good to make a big push. So yeah, I think he could just go for. So this is a tricky thing about this deck. He could go for game right now, right? So he could play. Oh, I can't control. So he could play Screeching, kill my Durian, and then he could play the Beacon Drone, and then with the Beacon Drone he has Shield Wing attacks, Jurlon, and then he could attack with the Nether Tactician, break, banish the banishing the Beacon Drone. Then he could attack with let's say the Jurlon here, and then he could attack with the Tactician, and again he could beat me as long as he could beat me with anything but a Sumo Artichoke in the first 4 shield. Like he could beat a Sumo Artichoke last shield, assuming that's how that ruling works. He could beat me as long as the Sumo Artichoke is not in the first 4 shields. But as we see, I already have 2 in mana, so it's very unlikely that I have one to begin with. So if he just plays a Beacon and Screeching Scaradorable, he beats me with that. If he had kept this other Beacon Drone over the Shield Wing, I think he basically would have been guaranteed the victory. I don't think there was any real combination of cards. Like even just one Sumo Artichoke wouldn't have won. So this is a situation where if he had kept that Beacon Drone over this Luminous Shield Wing, he would have won for sure. But in this situation, he can still beat me with anything but a Sumo Artichoke in the first 4 shields, if he just chooses to go for game now. He could also play, if he had kept it instead of this Stalker, I think he could also have made a similar play. Is it the same play? Instead of playing Screeching, it'd be 2, 1, 2. I think it's the same. If he just plays this in mana, plays Underworld Stalker plus Impalicus, he could attack with the Luminous Shield Wing over this, attack with the Jurlon, break a shield, attack with the Impalicus, break 2. Or no, sorry, no, it doesn't game me. So he has to play the Beacon Drone. But he could play Beacon Drone and evolve the Impalicus. Let's see what he does, first of all. But as we know, if he just plays Screeching, attacks the Beacon Drone, or plays the Beacon Drone, he could game me and win. Again, anything but Sumo Artichoke in these first 4 shields. So he plays a Screeching, and he plays, so blowing up the Durian, of course, which frees up that attack. And he plays, I believe, yeah, he plays, so he plays Impalicus, not the Beacon Drone. But it effectively does the same thing here, because this represents 2 additional shield breaks. This also represents two additional shield breaks. So it looks like he's setting up for game either way. Again, he can go break 1, break 2, and then he can go break 3, and then he can go Nether Tactician, banish something, and again, it accomplishes the same thing of beating me with anything but a Sumo Artichoke in the first 4. But here, I think he ends up making a different play. So he ends up attacking the shield. So I think, okay, he's going for game. But then he ends up kind of making the, I think, overly defensive play of trying to just get rid of all my resources. And then he passes. So it's very clear what he's doing here is with the beacon drone next turn and this huge board, he's basically guaranteeing that he can win the game next turn. Yeah, he's guaranteeing game the following turn through a sumo artichoke, which is fair. But I think if you take that line, I don't like the idea of like getting rid of this web leg. I think if you want to take the time, the guaranteed beating me, even though I already have 2 sumo artichokes down, it's probably better to just go for game. But if you're not going to do that, I think the better way to go about it would just be to maybe hold the Impalicus in your hand and the beacon drone for next turn. Or maybe even just commit the beacon drone but not do anything with it. Like I would have just played Screeching, beacon drone, and then hold this Impalicus for next turn for that kind of burst here. And then maybe just attack the Tactician onto the Durian, the Renegade, and then just banish the Shield Wing. So now you have like 2 shields, or I don't know, even just attack it. And then you can untap and you're just going to be guaranteed to win the game. Regardless of a sumo artichoke. So I think there's a better way to go about this than leave yourself with I mean, you could even just crash the Luminous Shield Wing into the Renegade, and then, because I don't think you need this extra single shield breaker when you have the like everything else here and with the beacon drone in play. So I think there was a way where you could leave yourself with the blocker and the 2, like you could, I think, yeah, because you wouldn't need the 7 mana. You could even have manaed the Darkseer Jurlon instead of the Underworld Stalker, played Beacon Drone plus Screeching Scare Adorable, and then the following turn, you don't even have to have this Ravenous Webleg survive. You could even block with it, because then you can follow up with Underworld Stalker plus Impalicus to complement the board of like Tactician, Screeching, Jurlon, and the Beacon Drone. And you're still guaranteed game, but you can also leave yourself with 2 shields and a Webleg. So you're even through something that I draw like a Swift Regeneration. A Swift Regeneration would save me. But even if I draw something strong like a Cornucopia maybe, I think you could still find a way to... I mean, Cornucopia might be tough. At the end of the day, I really don't like giving an extra draw here. I think with only 1 Sumo Artichoke left, and you're guaranteed to win with anything but it in the first 4 shields, you should probably just go for that game. In general, I think I touched on already, it's probably the best to... it's always... whenever you're in a decision whether or not you should go for it or make the safe play, I think it's always much more likely that it's better to just go for game. Like, the odds are never actually as bad as you think they are, and you're generally favored to win. I don't know. Maybe it'll end up being results-oriented thinking here, but I think if you want to make the defensive play, I think there was a better way to go about it. And as we see, I kind of top deck the Sprite's Gift again, similar to last game, getting super lucky that I top decked like the Swift Regeneration effect, and then I get a go for game here. With this, even if he had kept up the web leg, it would have been really tricky for him, because the Ninja Pumpkin being unbanishable almost buys me the following turn as well, and then it makes it, he would have had to have blocked with the web leg. So yeah, I think, again, looking at the position, I think it's just best to probably go for game. I guess that's not the actual position. But yeah, rewinding a bit, I think it's best to just go for game. Oh geez. Okay, whatever, we'll just pause there. But yeah, I think it was best to just probably try to set up, if you're going to set up for lethal to beat the artichoke, I think there was a better way to do that. That might give you an extra turn to develop some defense. If I just drew something like But at the end of the day, I think it's like I have Cornucopia and Sprite's Gift, Swift Regeneration. Maybe it's not a ton of draws, but there are a few things that could really punish that defensive play. Maybe even Cornucopia. Yeah. Like this line that he took right here, I think is somewhat weak to a Cornucopia. I don't know. To be honest, I think maybe waiting's not the worst. I think there was a better way to go about it that made it a little bit more likely you survive. But I think in general you should probably just um, make the play that just goes for game, especially when it's I have one artichoke and out of like 26 cards left or 27 cards left. Like it's very unlikely that it's actually in my shields. So I think you should probably just go for game and not let your opponent have the extra turn. That could be results oriented thinking. Maybe it's worth maybe the likelihood that I draw something that wins me the game or prevents me from dying and gives me another draw. Maybe the likelihood of that may be less than the likelihood that I have a sumo artichoke and shields, and so it's worth him waiting. So yeah, I could see his decision making process, and it may have been correct if when you actually run the numbers, but it's kind of hard to say. And in general, I think again, it's probably best to go for the game when you have the opportunity, especially when like the numbers are generally in your favor, to just go for game. So, with all that said, I mean that really shows as well the power of Sprite's Gift in a game where I had already gone through 2 Swift Regenerations, but I had a bunch of spare mana. Sprite's Gift that's exactly what the card's meant to do, where it gives you this just another super live draw and another really big impact play. So that's the real benefit to playing a card like this, is when you play a lot of these super tight games, it just gives you that many more draws than you would have otherwise. And so yeah, super tight game, a lot of close decisions on both sides, some things to think about. And yeah, I think yeah, very fun match. Although it was like a 2-0 victory for myself playing the Veggie deck. Again, those were 2 very tight games where something had to go insanely right for me to actually pull it out. And some also tricky positions. This Nether Tactician deck is actually, maybe I'm just not used to the calculations with it yet because I haven't played with the card a ton, but it's kind of tricky to figure out these kind of maths, especially when you start incorporating Shield Blast and trying to figure out optimal strings of attacks with this card. Seems really tough to do. So props to LED for playing this deck, and yeah, it was a fun match to play with him. And anyways, that would be kind of my first sort of match breakdown. Let me know if you like kind of the formatting and how you enjoyed the process. And maybe what kind of matches, what kind of decks you'd like to see me pilot in the future. And yeah, I'd like to hear some feedback if you enjoy this kind of presentation, or maybe you would prefer, even if they are scuffed, maybe some more sort of live recordings. So with that all said, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and thank you for watching. Look out for more in the future. Bye.